This is the first time I've had to record like this, but it's so important because this is the night that the UK decides whether or not to commit the Air Force for bombing sorties over Syria, and in short, going to war. And the reason I'm recording it in this, which is my office, which is at the other end of the parliamentary estate, is because just now in the House of Commons, we've had our minutes cut from unlimited 8-9 minutes to begin with, then to 5, then to 4, then to 3. And after 9 hours sitting there, I find out that actually I'm not going to get the opportunity to share my thoughts with you on this very important issue. So I thought I would record it in this office. And as you can see, when you're doing a speech, you end up hacking away at bits of it, very important parts, because of the time restrictions. This just further reinforces the fact that this debate should have been over 2 days and not over 10 hours, which is still going to leave a dozen or more people speaking and many others, and not being able to speak, and many others who have had to cut their speeches so short, some of it just frankly was meaningless. Anyway, thank you for listening to this tirade so far. What I wanted to say was, one of the most important decisions an MP must make is whether or not to commit people to war. After all, war can only have one outcome, and that has to be a successful and peaceful resolution. In order for this war to be successful, myself and my party agree that there needs to be an international agreement on a ceasefire in Syria. There needs to be security on the ground, and there needs to be a comprehensive strategy to defeat Daesh, or known as IS, and not just in Syria but the wider region, and a longer term plan for the rebuilding of Syria. But the motion put forward by the government today, and what I learned on the benches from the government this afternoon, was that this was not discussed in any great depth. Therefore, there is no way, neither before nor now, or at 10 o'clock tonight when I vote, that I could possibly support it. If this Parliament was to proceed with the airstrikes today, it will make the UK the 13th country to engage in bombing Syria. How then will the UK's airstrikes differ from those previous attempts, which have so far failed to defeat Daesh? Let's just take a look at what's happened in the last 24 hours. The Foreign Affairs Committee here in Parliament voted no, not to endorse the government motion back in airstrikes, and that was only yesterday. The committee voted 4-3 in favour of a motion stating that the Prime Minister, and I quote, has not adequately addressed concerns. Secondly, a poll published only this morning, a survey of 2,000 Scots, found that 72% are against bombing Syria. Across today's newspapers, concerns are raised over the Prime Minister's claims of a supposed 70,000 moderate allies in Syria. And one of his own colleagues on his own bench pointed out that this is a defining moment, and we find out that actually his troops may be much less. And instead of being the dodgy dossier we heard about in Iraq, that actually it's the bogus battalions. Yesterday, the Muslim Council of Scotland, which is supported by the Muslim Council of Britain, made clear their belief that to wage an airstrike against Syria would play directly into the hands of these extremists. Moreover, it will create a surge of new recruits of Daesh, spurred on by Western military intervention and keen to give justification to their twisted actions. Now, in my constituency in Dundee, we have had literally hundreds and hundreds of emails, almost all of which are against the support of bombing in Syria. We've also had the phone ringing off the hook and a number of letters as well. And one of them I think is very pertinent to this entire debate tonight, because it's not just the voices of me as a politician or of my constituents, many of which may or may not have been involved in military action, but this one is in particularly precise because it comes from a former Royal Air Force weapons technician. Now, he tells me in his email he was involved in the NATO operation Elmi in 2011, operating a no-fly zone over Libya. He recalls quite clearly the day Colonel Gaddafi died. He also recalls how quickly the UK was to pull out its involvement in the conflict. And he's told me of the utter shame he now feels in his involvement in a bombing campaign which ultimately abandoned Libya in his hour of need. He says his memories of his time in Libya have caused him to fear we will see a repeated result in Syria, namely a withdrawal of troops and military force which will leave a huge power vacuum for extremists to fill and to abuse. With his first-hand experience in the outcome military intervention in unstable regions, his concerns are shared by many who do not wish to see us rushing into conflict in a region where alliances are so blurred. This letter reminds me of an earlier conversation also which I had with an RAF pilot who was also involved in the Libyan airstrikes. He recalled to me that his flight jacket was marked by his own tears by the time he landed after every airstrike, and that he did not have the energy even to remove the tear-stained jacket. For he too shared in the belief that airstrikes alone do not bring about a peaceful result. Now let us remind ourselves for a moment that the impact of conflict is not just on our enemies, but also on those we are trying to protect, and those who try to defend us, namely the brave men and women that protect our nations on our behalf. Neither those of us in the SNP or the concerns of these brave and inspirational armed personnel are pacifists, cowards, or as Cameron might like to call, terrorist sympathisers. The UK spent £320 million in military intervention in Libya, but just £40 million on rebuilding the country. Now I'll do the maths for you. That's almost 13 times as much money in bombing than a humanitarian effort. We must not repeat that mistake. However, we heard today in the chamber that it will run into thousands of millions of pounds to rebuild Syria, and yet we've committed only £1 billion, which would mean it's less than 1% of the total budget. Concerns have also been raised about the safety of the people of this country, concerns which of course I wholeheartedly agree with. However, the government is yet to make clear exactly how these airstrikes will improve the safety of our citizens and ensure our national security. I suspect the government has not made this clear because the simple fact lies that there is no evidence of how the safety to the public will be ensured. Of course, we all want to defeat Daesh, there's no question about that. And of course, we all want desperately to show our solidarity, not just with France after the barbarous acts we witnessed just a little over 2 weeks ago in Paris, but what we've seen in Libya, in Lebanon, in Turkey, and we've seen further afield. Ultimately, we all want to see long-term peace established in Syria and its neighbouring nations. However, airstrikes in Syria alone will not meet these objectives, and in my judgment, the case has not been made for today's motion, and that's why I'll be supporting the alternative amendment that's been put forward by 6 parties and well over 100 signatures. I hope that helps explain my position. Thank you.